Hi, I'm Sam Lewis, Director of Communications and Engagement at Ragdale. I want to welcome you to the 2020 edition of the Ragdale Ring. We're bringing this to you via live stream due to the ongoing health concerns related to COVID-19. However, our winning 2020 design team, Outpost Office, submitted a proposal that really fits with the current state of the world, as it's technology-based, forward-thinking, and makes for pretty good viewing from a computer or smartphone. Tonight's performers, Sara Zalek and Hunter Diamond, are really joined by the yet-to-be-named robot that's the centerpiece of Outpost Office's project, as well as the drone they brought to record the amazing aerial shots you'll see tonight. So, in a lot of ways, it's a quartet with Sara and Hunter joined by Eric and Ashley of Outpost Office on drone and robot respectively. I want to thank recently departed Ragdale Executive Director Jeffrey Mewson for his vision with the ring, as well as the Ragdale staff and Board of Trustees for all of their support. I also want to thank Spirit of Space for their video footage and GPS lining for the robot. So, I hope you brought your spirit of adventure as we embark on uncharted territory with the 2020 Ragdale Ring. And stay tuned for socially distant live performances of the ring in August and September on the Ragdale campus. Thanks. Hello, Ashley and Eric. Welcome to Ragdale.
Thanks,
Hi.
Sam.
Thanks for having us.
And congratulations once again in person this time.
Thank you.
It's really exciting to have you on campus and to have that robot that's over there on campus as well.
Yeah.
It is definitely the star of the show. So I know everything was like very experimental, improvisational. And so what are some of your takeaways from this initial visit?
I mean, obviously my first takeaway is how talented and amazing the artists are. I will say, I mean, the interaction between the robot and the artist is something that we had thought a lot about, but it was not something that we could really plan beforehand. And so I think it worked so beautifully, and I give the credit to them really. And I was actually manually moving the robot around, and Eric was kind of manually moving the drone around. And so the two machines and then the two artists, there was this amazing kind of collaboration that happened, which really was improvisation, but hopefully also felt sort of scripted, and at times I could feel a story kind of emerging out of the performance.
And so what are some of the technical things, the nerdy stuff? Let's
Sure.
get deep into that.
Yeah, the robot's not like a printer. You can't just push a button and get an image you want. You really have to get to understand its kinetics. That means the way it moves when it's painting and even when it's not. So one of the things we've learned is that it creates these herky-jerky little moments when it goes from one piece of geometry to another, where it feels very much like a kind of little fuzzy animal as it tries to kind of find a new location. We're learning a lot about how to put geometry into the robot, and we're learning a lot about how it kind of understands space through the GPS and also through its movement, which is dictated by vectors. So when Ashley controls it, she combines vectors in two different directions to get it to begin to bow and arc and produce the kind of curvatures you see behind us.
Yes.
So I think the thing that's really exciting too is that Ragdale is always a place where architects kind of don't really act like architects, and typically that means that it's architects that come out and build something. And I think that we're kind of working a little bit more like dancers and painters, and so even though we can't get a big team out here to fabricate, it's letting us as architects begin to push our disciplinary knowledge and maybe get into areas that we wouldn't get to venture into. It's something too about the site, we've spent a lot of time drawing and testing things. What you see behind us is mostly done manually, and what you see in the other field is actually dictated by coordinate systems. And in each case, I think what we're learning is that even though the robotics sounds really disembodied, sounds really autonomous, sounds really disconnected, we actually really have to be on site and have to experience the place and find a way to get those machines to talk with this place.
And talk with humans. That's the that's the biggest challenge too. Is we know what we want it to do and we can sketch it on a piece of paper, but then translating that into kind of robot speak has been like the thing that we've been doing for the past 24 hours. It's like, okay, I want it to look like this, but what's the quickest, easiest way to describe this set of lines in the robot's language? And so now we're, 48 hours into that, we're getting pretty good at it, but we're really excited about the next couple of performances, like being able to really use that knowledge over the next couple months.
Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this, when the only thing that we see is what we want to see. How can you be surprised by what we see? Let me ask you this.
just was amazed at how fun it was to play with this little simple robot. And I think with the live music and also with Hunter's music and also being in this beautiful place of nature and it's like big trees and the wind, it was so so dynamic, and it felt like it created so many stories. We're just layering and layering and layering as we moved through the time, from over in the other space to then this space. I just felt like, yeah, so many narratives were just kind of being woven, and it just opened up a lot of free feeling as far as like movement for me and experiencing like the moment. And then of course the drone also added this other layer. So yeah, we were dealing with two robots, two humans, and I didn't feel verses, although there was contrast sometimes, but there was also moments of playfulness and together, and I could feel, yeah, different characters. Funny how quickly I could characterize the robot or put character into the robot. How was it for you?
It was definitely the most interesting quartet that I've ever been a member of, and I hope that we can go on tour with all this COVID stuff. So. It was. I resonate a lot when you use the word narrative. Sam, you were showing me the adjacent lot there where the original ring was, theater ring that was constructed in the 19th century, and I was kind of imagining all the people there as you'd set the scene for me. You were describing the functionality and the construction of that ring stage, so to speak, and so I was imagining what telling stories is like in this space. And there is so much to work with here. I mean, the landscape alone is could take years to fully tell its tale. But to participate in it, giving site-specific performances takes all of the feeling of work or pressure or expectation away. That we can come into a space that has already set the stage for us, and we can just slip right in. And it felt very much like that, even though Sara and I were both in an exploratory mode with new technologies, new techniques, new space. None of it felt unnatural, and that was a very healing experience to have. Coming out of weeks and weeks of hibernation, isolation.